Welcome back to the latest episode of the W Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Tubby, and boy, do I have a fun episode for you as I recap week 5 of the college football season. And did we have some crazy, wacky games this weekend, along with one massive upset? But let's start off with probably the craziest game of the week, and that was Miami versus Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech handled Miami most of this game. Really, Virginia Tech should have won. Drones looked like the drones we were expecting. This was the Virginia Tech team that me and Jimothy were thinking we would see most of this season, and they just haven't really showed up until really this Miami game. Cam Ward struggled early on, but really found his footing in the second half. And then we have the crazy play at the end where they call a touchdown on the field, and really, I don't know if there's really an angle or any way to tell that he didn't come down with the ball and it wasn't ripped out after he was in the end zone. They come back and say, oh, he didn't catch it. No touchdown. Miami wins. Like, I'm sitting there and I go, yeah, I don't think he caught it. But once you get into the thinking part when it comes to reviews, it's dead right there. Games, plays over. Not enough evidence to overturn it. Well, I was wrong. I thought he, potentially caught it. I thought maybe I saw the ball coming out a little bit, but there was no clear and obvious evidence that was the case. And with them calling a touchdown on the field, I expected it to uphold, and we see Virginia Tech knock off Miami from the unbeaten, and that wasn't the case. Miami got lucky. They really did. That somehow the officiating crew, the replay crew, was able to overturn that call. I don't agree with them overturning it because you called the touchdown on the field to begin with. Unfortunate for Virginia Tech, fortunate for Miami that they are still undefeated and they are still in the top 10 in the this latest rankings. Then we're going to move over to the Big 12, a game of two teams that were fighting after big losses the week before. Kansas State just absolutely manhandled Oklahoma State, and we saw a star born, I believe. This is a player me and Jimothy talked about in the offseason and in our early predictions that Avery Johnson was a player to watch for, especially in the Big 12. When we talked about all the great quarterbacks in the Big 12, this was one that we talked about. Watch out, because if he finds his footing, the Big 12 has a handful on their hands because this kid can move and he can throw the football. Ends up with 319 total yards and 5 touchdowns. But it wasn't just him. DJ Giddens just absolutely ran ruckshot all over that Oklahoma State defense. They had no answer for him whatsoever. Alan Bowman turns the ball over 3 times, and we saw Ollie Gordon first drive. We're like, all right, this is the Ollie Gordon we've been looking for all season. This is the Ollie Gordon we expected. 43 yards on the first drive, settled for a field goal. Boom. That was really about it. Ended up with 43 yards of his 76 yards on the first drive, and it was pretty much all she wrote. Kansas State is really in the driver's seat, I think, right now for the Big 12 because we're not sure where Cam Rising is. And yeah, they beat Kansas. They beat BYU, beat them. I'm still not completely sold on BYU. I think if that game's in Manhattan, we're having a different discussion with Kansas State being undefeated and BYU having one loss. Retzlaff didn't look great this week against Baylor, so I'm not quite sold on BYU, but they are better this year than I expected. This was one team that we really didn't mention in the offseason was BYU having much of a shot. Maybe we overlooked them. Maybe they're just little pretenders right now. We'll see as the season goes ahead. Another big game was Notre Dame getting revenge after the absolute blowout last year that Louisville put on them. Riley Leonard goes out, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. Penalties at the end of the game stalled it for Louisville whenever they had a chance to march down the field and potentially tie this game up. The penalties caught them. Tyler Slew had a couple bad turnovers that really cost them too. Still, I'm not sold on this Notre Dame team. I wasn't completely sold on Louisville coming into the season. They kind of proved me wrong early on, but I still wasn't completely sold on either team. I'm still not sold on Notre Dame. They haven't really played great full game of football yet, and there's still a lot they need to prove, I think, going forward. Then we go over to the OU game. This game was ugly for the most part for Oklahoma. You're down, 11 in the fourth quarter, and really no semblance of offense. Michael Hawkins didn't have much of, your top 5 wide receivers out of this game. He struggled finding someone to throw the football to, but he showed up when we needed him to. Drives down the field, big 60-yard play to J.J. Hester. Maybe he finally found a wide receiver to go to if those guys are still out. Offensive line played better, but not great. Run game is still just absolutely non-existent right now. But really, for the most part, Peyton Thorne played error-free football and looked like Auburn was going to win this game. They really dominated Oklahoma for the most part. The defense for OU was a little shaky. Auburn was able to take their foot off the pedal and just kind of grind out that game. And really, I was looking at it, I was like, man, there's no chance Oklahoma, comes back. When they went down 21-10, I was just like, I don't see a way that the offense can get things going. And to my surprise, they score 17 unanswered points. Peyton Thorne throws an absolutely terrible interception, gets returned for a touchdown by Kip Lewis, and really the turnover bug, came back to bite them in the butt. The thing that has been their undoing all season was turnovers. Well, pretty much through the first 3.5 quarters of the game, they had mitigated those turnovers, and then finally Peyton Thorne gets lulled into sleep, and Kip Lewis drops back, picks him off, returns it, and that was really the momentum turner in the game for Oklahoma. They really, came to life, ended up scoring 17 unanswered, got their first SEC win. Now we got 2 weeks off before we head to play Texas in the Red River rivalry, and boy, this is going to be tough. I don't know if Oklahoma has a whole lot of a shot, but it is the Red River rivalry. This is Oklahoma and Texas. You never know. Texas, they have 2 weeks off to plan for Oklahoma, get Quinn Ewers healthy if that's, what the option they're going with. I mean, Arch Manning's look great, but against 2 pretty inferior teams. So I would think that they're going to stick with Quinn Ewers for this game if he is healthy and ready to play. But I think one thing for Oklahoma came from this game. Michael Hawkins showed the heart that I think Oklahoma was looking for. That play where he flips into the end zone for the 2-point conversion just really shows that he really doesn't have a care for his body right now. He was going out there. He knew those 2 points were crucial to force Auburn. If they wanted to win the game at the end, they had to score a touchdown, and they really couldn't count on that kicker to kick a field goal to tie up the game because he had missed 3 straight. I mean, he misses one, gets called back because of a stupid penalty by Oklahoma, turned around, misses another one, and then later in the game, they marched. You can tell they were just kind of settling for a field goal, which I don't understand why. When he missed 2 chip shots early on, settles for a 51-yard field goal, misses it, and at that point when Oklahoma goes up 3, I think you kind of knew that for Auburn, it was basically touchdown or bust because they didn't trust that kicker to, go out there and kick a field goal. So good for Oklahoma to get that first win, but there's still a lot to be, desired for this offense. The play calling has just been so abysmal. I honestly, if my first call this offseason, it's to Brendan Marion, UNLV offense coordinator. Come on down. You are the man for the job. That was the guy I was hoping for this offseason. Ended up not happening. I wish they would have went with him because I think that he would really do well with Jackson Arnold or Michael Hawkins, whoever the quarterback was in that style of offense. I think they both would have fit a lot better. But, we'll see what happens in the next 2 weeks as Oklahoma prepares for Texas, as Texas prepares for Oklahoma. It is the Red River. We never know what's going to happen. So I guess we'll see in 2 weeks. And then we got the game of the week, Alabama versus Georgia, 2 versus 4. I really thought Georgia was going to show up a lot more than they did outside of the second half. The first half for Carson Beck was just awful. The turnovers literally killed them. They had every opportunity in this game, but man, Jalen Milroe is an absolute problem. Kalen DeBoer has unlocked something in Jalen Milroe that should have other teams in college football shaking in their boots right now. The way he dismantled that Georgia defense in that first half was surgical. Him and Ryan Williams are a problem this year, and Jalen Milroe has absolutely helped his draft stock. I think more than any quarterback right now, eligible for the draft this year. And maybe if he keeps, things up, he could potentially push himself into being the first quarterback taken because of what he's able to do with his legs. And then the improvements he has made as a passer this offseason under the tutelage of Kalen DeBoer. Kalen DeBoer has really helped him out. He did a lot with Michael Penix. We saw Penix getting taken in the first round, and he was in the Heisman race last year. We are seeing that same development with Jalen Milroe. And this is what I said this offseason, man. If he can find some way to improve the passing of Jalen Milroe, this team is dangerous because we know Milroe with his legs is, lights out. And right now, Milroe's sitting about 13 or 1,200 yards, total yards, and 18 touchdowns and only one turnover. He is just a man on a mission right now, and this was by far the best win of the season. Alabama absolutely deserves to be the number one team in the country right now. Like I said, the way they dismantled that Georgia offense in the first half was surgical, but it was a tale of two halves. Georgia storms back in the second half after being down 30-7 at halftime, and at one point takes the lead. I mean, it was almost a colossal collapse by Alabama, but what I mentioned earlier, the turnovers. Carson Beck with 4 turnovers last night absolutely killed them. He has one less turnover. They probably win that game. And now you're kind of sitting there. If you're Georgia, you've got a big game coming up in the next couple of weeks. Really your final big game against Texas, with Texas having a kind of a good, primer for them heading into that Georgia game. I mean, yeah, for Texas heading into that game, playing Oklahoma the week before, we will see what Alabama or what Georgia can do the rest of the season, because honestly, I thought this was the most complete team in college football this year, the way they had played outside of the Kentucky game. But Carson Beck's decision-making last night was very head-scratching. Some of those throws he threw, I mean, the one he threw literally to Jahad Campbell was just like, what are you doing? You get the turnover, then you turn around and give it right back to him when the wide receiver was basically triple covered. It's definitely was not a great sign for them, but I'm not going to count them out because this is their 5th loss in the last how many years, and all 5 of them are to Alabama. So granted, the only time they lose is to Alabama. If they don't have to play Alabama again, maybe they don't lose again this year and they win the national championship. We'll see. But man, Kirby Smart probably can't be too happy with the way that game went, especially in the first half, because if you just mitigate just a few of those turnovers, you probably win that game, and you're sitting at number 1 with, outside of Texas, an easy road to the SEC championship game. But we're going to talk about a few Heisman candidates real quick before we jump off. Right now, I think Jalen Milroe is the favorite, should be the favorite right now for the Heisman Trophy. Like you said, what he's done, he's got the best win this year. And yeah, some people can say, oh, winning's not a quarterback stat. Yeah, we know. But when it comes to the Heisman, it matters. You have to win, and you have to win and play good against those big teams. And boy, did he put on a show last night at 421 yards and 4 touchdowns against one of the best defenses in college football. I think Cam Ward is another guy that you throw up there. Cam Ward has had an incredible season. He had a couple, bad turnovers early on in that game against Virginia Tech this weekend, but still, Cam Ward is the reason why Miami is undefeated and playing as well as they are. Travis Hunter. You can't talk about the Heisman right now without Travis Hunter, who's one of the top wide receivers in college football and one of the top corners. The amount of plays he's playing every single game, and the fact that he's still being as productive on both sides of the field is just truly incredible. And he has to be, if he stays healthy and he keeps on putting up these numbers, there's no way you can't bring him to New York with the way he's playing. But I think I think a lot of people are kind of not even thinking about is Ashton Jeanty, the running back from Boise State. He is averaging 10.9 yards per carry. Yes, you heard that right. 10.9 yards per carry with 13 touchdowns. He's on pace right now. If he keeps up this pace, he will break Barry Sanders' all-time season record for most yards in a single season. This kid has put up numbers, and it's against everyone. He put up these big numbers against Oregon, and they haven't had an easy schedule early on. They have played some really tough teams, even in the Mountain West. They have played more of the tougher teams in the Mountain West. But Ashton Jeanty is a kid to watch out for. If Boise State keeps winning, we'll see him in New York, because the numbers that he is already putting up right now are insane. I think the lowest amount of rushing yards he has so far this season is 169. We've seen him top out at 249. Yeah, it's crazy. 10.9 yards per carry is just absurd. And yeah, if he keeps it up, hard not to give him, at least a seat in New York. I don't know if he'll win just because it's Boise State and they won't play the toughest schedule. But man, if he breaks Barry Sanders' rushing record, for a single season, he definitely have a great argument. But you know what? That's the episode. I got nothing left for you talking about college football. But before we go, make sure that you are subscribed to the W Sports Podcast YouTube channel, because in a couple of weeks, we're going to start giveaway extravaganza. A giveaway every single month. And right now, the first 4 or 5 are going to be autographed NFL jerseys, and you will not want to miss out on that. And the only way you can get entered into that is to be subscribed to the channel. So make sure you go hit that subscribe button, and also hit that notification bell so you get the updates when we post these videos and post shorts, so you don't miss any information from the W Sports Podcast. And just remember, you just gotta listen. See ya.